You ever walk into a place and feel the weight of every eye in the room, like your very presence is the punchline to a joke you didn't ask to hear? That was me at 16, standing alone in a courtroom, hoodie sagging on my shoulders, sneakers barely hanging on, hands gripping my backpack like it was the only anchor I had left. They said I was on trial for obstruction and unlawful protest, but let's not kid ourselves. What they really saw was just another black kid, supposedly out of line, standing where I didn't belong. Judge Halbert, sharp as an ice pick and twice as cold, barely bothered to look at me. To her, I was just another headline waiting to happen, another interruption to her well-oiled routine. No lawyer, no parent by my side, just the echo of my father's lessons bouncing around in my head. A taught law the way some people teach you to swim, by throwing you into the deep end and trusting you'll find your way. So when the clerk called my name, Alec Turner, 16, state of Georgia versus, it felt like the whole place was holding its breath, waiting to see if I'd sink or swim. Judge Halbert cut to the chase. "Where's your attorney?" she asked. "Don't have one, Your Honor," I said as steady as I could. That didn't sit right with her, not for a second. Dalton, the prosecutor, with his polished shoes and voice that could fill a stadium, jumped in. "This isn't about misunderstanding. It's about defiance." He told the story his way. I'd staged an illegal protest over a mural, refused to leave, made a mess out of order. But no one bothered to ask why I stayed, why a painting of my father's civil rights attorney, now a ghost on a wall, was worth standing my ground for. They painted over him like he never existed. No warning, no ceremony, just gone. When Judge Halbert asked why I did it, I told her the truth. Because it wasn't just a mural. It was proof he mattered. Proof we mattered. She didn't care for that. "This is a courtroom, not a philosophy class," she shot back, and Dalton smirked, riding her wave. But I held my ground. I just want to know why he didn't matter. That's when the gavel hit. A hard warning in a room built for silence. But I didn't stop. "I'm not trying to disrespect you, ma'am. I'm trying to be heard." You could feel the shifted teacher shifting in their seat, a reporter scribbling faster. Even Halbert paused, long enough for her hand to tremble as she made note. For a moment, the courtroom wasn't sure what it was watching. A boy on trial, or something else, someone willing to stare down the whole system and refuse to look away. Dalton came back swinging, rattling off security footage and online posts, trying to prove I'd planned the whole thing, that I'd incited chaos. "We have evidence, mister." Turner remained after hours. This was deliberate. He spoke like he was reading a script that couldn't possibly end with me winning. Halbert leaned in, dry as ever. "So, a protest over a mural becomes obstruction? Is that what we're calling justice now?" She turned to me. "Do you understand what's happening here?" I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She pressed. "You're not here to defend your father's honor. You're here to answer for your actions. This isn't a history lesson. It's the law." I asked if I could speak, and the simple question felt like a challenge to her authority. "This court does not need lessons from a teenager," she snapped, her voice barely more than a whisper, but it landed harder than any gavel. I just sat down, didn't argue, but my eyes never left her. Not with defiance, just patience, the kind you earn from years of being told to wait your turn. Dalton reminded everyone the school had to call the cops. Not because of my opinion, but because of order. "And what did the murals say?" the judge asked. Dalton read, "Justice begins with truth." The words hung there, stubborn and unmovable. So the hearing rolled on without me, like I was a stone dropped in a river and the current just kept going. But I wasn't angry. I'd seen this before, long before I was old enough for courtrooms. My father used to say, "Don't fight with fists when you can outthink the system." I was 10 when he started teaching me law at the kitchen table, legal briefs scattered between plates of stew. He died in a car crash they said was just a coincidence, weeks after filing a complaint against the police. They painted over him on the wall, but I never stopped reading those old case files, learning how to spot loopholes, how to wait, how to let silence do the heavy lifting until the moment came to speak. When the judge's voice finally broke through, she sounded far away, her authority fuzzy around the edges. Dalton wanted to rush to summary judgment, move on, put an end to my stunt. The laughter from the gallery was cold and low, but I didn't flinch. I just reached in my backpack and pulled out a folder documents, witness statements, every scrap of proof I'd spent months gathering. My age doesn't disqualify facts, I told Dalton. You said I acted irrationally. That folder proves I didn't. Halbert's fingers twitched, but she wouldn't take the file, said it wasn't admissible. It still exists, I replied. And for the first time, the silence in the room felt less like erasure, more like the world waiting for what would happen next. I asked, "May I speak one last time?" Halbert was about to cut me off, but I pressed gently. With all due respect, I haven't had the chance to make my case. Dalton scoffed, but I wasn't talking to him. I told him about Tinker v. Des Moines, how students don't shed their rights at the schoolhouse gate. West Virginia v. Barnett, how no one can force you to salute what you don't believe. You told me this isn't a classroom, Your Honor, I said. But if we can't learn about justice here, how do you expect us to respect it out there? For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then, in the back, a reporter named Lena Bryan, a woman my dad once helped, realized who I was. She watched, remembering her own second chance and the way my father had stood up for her. That night, she wrote the story of the courtroom where a boy taught justice. It went viral. People didn't just read it, they felt it. The courthouse became a stage, not a cage. Outside, folks started gathering, silent but present. The system couldn't hide anymore. Back in her office, Judge Halbert pulled out my father's old case file. For the first time, she saw her own past the difference between order and erasure. She wrote, "The People versus Malik Turner reconsideration." The next day, she returned to court, different shoulders heavy, voice less certain. She allowed me a final word. Dalton objected, but she cut him off. I stood, hands trembling, and spoke from the heart. I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I was trying to preserve a memoriam mural of my father, a man who believed in the law. I stayed still, stayed silent, until they dragged me away. If a student standing up for history is a crime, maybe we need to ask who the real threat is. I quoted the cases I'd read since I was a kid. The law doesn't just belong to the people in charge. It belongs to anyone brave enough to claim it. The silence afterward wasn't weakness. It was control. Mine, finally. Halbert looked around the room, then dismissed all charges. This courtroom does not silence wisdom, not anymore. The applause that followed wasn't wild, just earned. Outside, in the hallway, I met my Uncle Elijah for the first time in years. He hugged me like I'd saved him, too. Lena watched, tears in her eyes, knowing she'd seen justice become more than a verdict. The next morning, I rode my bike past the school. The mural was back, but this time it included me. And inside the courthouse, Judge Halbert resigned, choosing to teach law instead of enforcing silence. Dalton got investigated. Lena turned down national interviews to come read her article on my school. And me? I kept riding past that walnut out of pride, but to remember who I am. Sometimes a teacher would nod, or a kid would ask, "Is that really you?" And I'd smile. It was me then. The law belongs to you now, too. Justice doesn't come roaring in. Sometimes it arrives in the quiet steps of a kid who refuses to shrink. The wall stayed, not because policy protected it, but because memory guarded it. If you made it this far, take a second and ask yourself, when was the last time you listened to a voice that wasn't supposed to matter? Because sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the biggest truth. What do you think? Does justice belong to the loudest, or to those who refuse to disappear? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about what real justice means.